Our opening song's original Christian lyrics were to have my mind stayed on Jesus. The song was adapted, if that's the right word, for the civil rights movement, changing the focus on freedom. What does it mean to have our minds stayed on freedom when we wake, walk, talk, sing, or pray? I am asking for your response. What does it mean to have our minds stayed on freedom? Anyone?
Every time I'm out in public, I'm attuned to seeing opportunities to talk about the current situation and what people can do about it, like tailored to each individual who I'm talking to. It's just become like a natural thing for me to do now, and it embarrasses my parents, and I don't care. I just tell them that that's who I am, and I'm not going to change.
When we're out in public, keeping space for speaking about the issues with others. Did I summarize that okay? Yeah.
I would say too, more so with your own actions, just keeping the fact that you're not trying to stop anybody else from anything or censor anybody or keeping your own things in your lane and not affecting anybody else.
Thank you. Yes. Being mindful of our effect on other people. Yeah.
Kind of in that same vein, just acceptance of differences and trying to be non-judgmental and yeah, just acceptance.
Acceptance and non-judgment. Thank you.
Alan Els would like to share. Alan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Acceptance of other people, but non-acceptance of what's happening politically now, and keeping it always in the forefront of our mind. What can I do? What can I do today? That it can't be just for the monthly demonstration, which we of course need to show up for.
Mm-hmm. Clarifying, yes. And showing up.
Okay, that's pretty much what I was going to say, is that you have to work to keep the choice, but you have to recognize that choices are being made that affect everybody's future. And you need to work to ensure that what comes out is better than what's going in.
Thank you, Alan.
I would say something we need to causes or oppressive causes work together, and trying to be aware of how one evil system influences and supports another evil system, and being aware of how those all tie together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Watching for the intersection of all injustices. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. I will add, it's not only individually that we may act. It's not only by participating as individuals, for example, in yesterday's No Kings protest, but as a congregation, co-sponsoring the event. The only faith community to do so. Likewise, today's Juneteenth, the only faith community to sponsor that event. I hope you all will join us this afternoon at Creative 360. We will co-host and celebrate Juneteenth. It is a holiday honoring June 19th, 1865, when the final order went out, sharing news of the Emancipation Proclamation to the last groups of enslaved African Americans. I hope you will join us because we need to honor and celebrate emancipation. We need to celebrate and work toward freedom for all. And And of course, given that today is also Father's Day, what father figure doesn't want greater freedom for the next generation than they experienced? Socially, civilly, we have a problem on our hands, to put it mildly. The current president and his sycophantic, let me not mince words, sycophantic cultist supporters appear hell-bent on turning the United States into a totalitarian oligarchy, or worse. This nation has never faced, in its 249-year history, the very real threat of becoming a domestic fascist regime. You've seen the headlines. We are witnessing crackdowns on and violations of our freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, of civil protest, intolerable legal and moral violations, and more. My adult child introduced me to this graphic novel via my spouse, Ellen. I challenge you, I dare you to read this book. It is a graphic novel, and it is incredibly deep. Nate Poswell's caution earlier is that we, in part, brought this on ourselves. That we as boomers, those of us who are boomers, have failed to process the fact that the rules we once knew about resisting fascism and protecting freedom no longer apply, and that we failed ourselves by our own faith in a functioning system that no longer is functioning. My interpretation of his concern is that over the last several decades, we as citizens have tolerated false equivalencies and given fascism the oxygen and space it has needed to grow. Though he's annoyingly short on details, he points out that the voices and methods of fascism have changed. We probably could spend a whole hour on that, and that we all must work to stop it. Bringing it closer to home, in my experience, Unitarian Universalists tend to be overly optimistic and permissive. In the name of freedom, of course. We have become overly comfortable with an unhealthy relativism. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in the last 3 decades, even from some of our own members, who say something like, Unitarian Universalism is where you can believe whatever you want. It simply is not true. We may believe in the transforming power of love, but we are not fools. We don't support racist bigots, terrorists, or charlatans, do we? We do not welcome self-avowed white supremacists or Nazis or any type of religious nationalists. We are, as the Reverend Taylor wrote in today's prayer, a people of faith in search of meaning and grace and a path toward justice. We arrive from many perspectives. We might arrive with our hearts alight with excitement and curiosity. We arrive with personal hopes for the day, often with hearts burdened by the world's suffering among the poor, the abused, or the marginalized. We often seek here the presence and prayers that might sustain us. We seek ideas and opportunities to connect and to build something beautiful that is greater than ourselves. One of the foundational sources of Unitarian Universalism, one of the touchstones of our movement, is printed in the front of our gray hymnal. I won't ask you to pull it out, but it's there. That source is the words and deeds of prophetic women and men who challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. We do have guiding values and principles and sources of meaning, and a long history and tradition of moral exemplars, not least of whom were Martha Sharp and her husband, the Reverend Waitstill Sharp, who traveled and organized to rescue Jews from Nazi persecution in the 1940s. Perhaps we have forgotten their example. Let me share with you some notes about UU theology from our Soul Matters materials. Unitarian Universalist theology, we have many, but among them, has long been held freedom as a theological foundation, rooted in its rejection of predestination and authoritarian doctrines. Early Unitarians emphasized the individual's capacity to reason and make moral choices, asserting that each person could freely shape their own spiritual path. Similarly, Universalists proclaimed a vision of universal salvation, freeing individuals from the fear of eternal damnation. This foundational embrace of freedom liberated faith from the constraints of fear and dogma, opening the way for a spiritually expansive and personally meaningful journey. Freedom also manifests in UU theology as a commitment to collective liberation, drawing from the rich traditions of liberation theology. This understanding of freedom extends beyond the individual to encompass the shared responsibility to dismantle systems of oppression and create a world where all can thrive. UUs see the practice of justice as deeply intertwined with the practice of freedom, understanding that no one is truly free until we all are free. This commitment calls UUs to engage in acts of solidarity and resistance, advocating for systemic change as a spiritual and moral imperative. In an echo of last week's reference to our fourth principle on the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, a colleague, the Reverend Tom Owentoll, has noted Unitarian Universalists are adamant that freedom without responsibility winds up in chaos, and that responsibility without liberty results in blind obligations. The combination of responsibility plus freedom is who we are and how we choose to travel. So resistance to injustice and oppression is part of our identity. Even when we fail, resistance is never futile. Why? Because it helps us clarify our values, it helps us feel empowered, and it helps us model courage for others and for future generations, as the Sharps and many others did for us. When we engage in activism, we not only express a love of the world and of each other, we become that love. We embody that love. And embodying love is spiritual work. It often feels as if there is so much outside our control. In fact, there is. We can't control what other people do, wrote Boswell, but we can control our own actions. We can control the courage to take risks. We can control how we look out for each other. We can control our judgment of people and their level of participation. We can control how we listen and learn. We all want to survive and thrive, he wrote, and we can commit to making a future together. This means summoning all our courage to save and salvage what we can, in his view, what may already have been lost. Ours is a critical moment in history. It is we together who will determine what kind of society our kids grow into, by what we choose to do or not do. The Reverend Julian Soto, another colleague, puts Boswell's assertions a little differently. America, is this freedom? Who is free? All is not lost, but some is gone. The part of society that could assume that being decent was enough of an expectation to keep us civil is discovering that, disconnected from values, any practice can be destructive. The time to politely look away, as though cruelty is merely somewhat impolite, expired some time ago. We must get free. Do something, they wrote. Do something to be faithful. Do something to interrupt evil. Do not wait. Do it now. The time we have left for collecting courage and dealing in compassion is not unlimited. But this is still your day. Move into it in your power and your love. Our chalice flame is a symbol and metaphor, a beacon of freedom, a light of reason, and a spark of courage aglow with hope. May we continue to brighten this present moment and inspire us to be the love that is our center and our foundation. May every heart join every heart, every hand join every hand, every voice join in singing, and may every person live in dignity. That's when we'll be free. May we continue to have our minds stayed on freedom. Blessed be, and amen.